Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Elyna Rosazira Binti Osman, metric number 1201508. So in this video, we would like to present about Rahn and its application in Malaysia. So the first one is introduction to Rahn. Rahn is known as Islamic pawnbroking for short-term collateralized borrowing. It is also permissible in Sharia, unlike conventional pawnbroking. This is because Rahn only allow gold or jewelry to exchange. However, Rahn in modern era may take either a form of paper such as property documents, vehicle paper, shares, or any valuable object. In Malaysia, there are two agents that offer Rahn facilities. The first one is bank or DFI, the second one is non-banks. For banks or DFI, which include RHB, CIMB, Bank Rakyat, Bank Islam, Agro Bank, Bank Muamalat and others. Meanwhile, in non-banks, which include Post Malaysia, YBU Yapim, Public Call and Rahn Exchange.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Siti Binti Roslan. So I will continue this discussion by explaining about the definition of Rahn in more detail. So Rahn or mortgage or collateral is defined in the Islamic jurisprudence as possessions offered as security for a debt so that the debt will be taken from it in case the debtor failed to pay back the due money. Next, Rahn is a permissible contract in Sharia. It is known from the Sunnah that when the Prophet of Allah, Mohammad passed away, his shield was with a Jewish man in Medina as a collateral. Technically, taking a property as security against a debt whereby the secure property can be utilized to repay in the case of non-payment. First, Rahn also termed as pawning, mortgage, collateral, charge, lien, and pledge. Second, Rahn literally means to detain a thing. Legally, it is the detention of a corporeal property on account of a claim, such as a debt, which may be certified out of that property. So in this study, Rahn is referring to the Islamic pawnbroking. Rahn referring to a mechanism whereby a valuable item is used as collateral tied up for a secure debt that can to be paid in the event of default, which is a guideline for Rahn approval, Malaysia Cooperative Societies Commission. The collateral may be disposed in the event of default. Next, Rahn also provides a short-term financing to the public by allowing a customer to pawning his or her jewelry to banks or pawn shop as a security. It is one of the microcredit and financial instruments for who seek for financial assistance mainly to meet off their working capital needs.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohammad Alif bin Mohammad. My metric number 1201510. So I will be presenting about the principle of Rahn. At the first glance, Rahn and mortgage tax looks like they are the same. Nevertheless, there are significant differences that distinguish between these two affairs. The significant differences between these two affairs are that Rahn adopt a Sharia-based system while a pawn shop adopt a conventional concept. According to Muhammad Naim 2004 as cited in Abdul Razak 2011, the pawning contract has four components. The first one, Rahn contract need to have a sirah, which is ijab and a kabul, as a sign of submission and acceptance. Second, need to have a borrower, which we call in Arabic ar-rahin, and the lender who receive the pawn property, which is al-murtahin. Third, al-marhum bih, which is the object that is pawned. And fourth, the Rahn must be based on the concept of Islamic muamalat such as al-qardul hasan, al-wadiyah yat-tumanah, al-ujrah, al-rahnu, and al-qard. Next is dalil Rahn. Dalil about Rahn can be found in Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa in kuntum ala safarin wa lam tajidu katiban farihanum maqbudah which mean, and if you are on a journey and cannot find a scribe, then a security deposit should be taken. In hadith, can find the hadith about Rahnu. In hadith وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اشتري من يهودي طعاما إلى أجل ورهنه درع له من جديد, which mean from Aisyah radhiyallahu anhu, indeed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam once bought a food from a Jew in a debt, and he gave him his armor as a collateral. The next hadith is وعن Anas qala rahnu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam dar'an inda Yahudi bil Madinah wa akhadha minhu sha'iran li ahlihi. From Anas ibn Malik radhiyallahu anhu said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had pawned armor to a Jew in Medina while taking wheat to give to his family. Hadith riwayat Bukhari, Nasa'i and Ibn Majah.
Next, we are gonna talk about the pillars of Rahnu. First, Rahin. Rahin is a pledger, which is a person who gives Rahnu or a debtor. Second, Murtahin, a pledgee, which is a person who takes Rahnu or a creditor. Third, Marhun, a pledged asset, which is a property that needs to be pledged. Fourth, Marhun B, the liability of Rahnu or the debt. 5. Sirah, which is divided by 2. The first one is ijab, which is offer, and the second one is qabul, which is acceptance. So next, the pillars of Rahnu in Islamic jurisprudence. There are disagreements among scholars when discussing and determining the pillars of the Rahnu contract. The majority of Hanafis believe that there is only one pillar in the contract of Rahnu, that is the verbal offer, which is ijab. The verbal acceptance, which is qabul, by the pledge is just a condition, but it's not compulsory because Rahnu is a charitable contract. However, the majority of jurists from Maliki, Shafi'i and Hanbali schools concur that there are 4 main pillars of Rahnu. These include the 2 contracted parties, the sirah, which is verbal offer and acceptance, the pledge item and the protected things such as the debt. The first pillar is the 2 contracted parties, the pledger and the pledge. The agreement on this pillar is mainly focused on the eligibility of the person to make the transaction. Next, the second pillar is offer and acceptance. There are discussions among Islamic jurists about sirah. There was no consensus among them with regard to the minor issues of sirah. Next, the third pillar is the protected and right in a pawn contract. The majority of jurists unanimously agree that pawning is permissible to create a debt. So the last one, the fourth pillar is the thing that given as pawn. There were conclusive agreements among the majority of jurists on the permissibility of taking any objects which were permitted to be sold as pawn for debt.
I am Wardatul Husna Binti Rosmin, metric number 1201526. Next is pledge asset. A pledge asset is a valuable possession that is transferred to a lender to secure a debt or a loan. A pledge asset is collateral held by a lender in return for lending a funds. These are the terms of pledge asset. First one is must be able to be sold and be bought. Then must be in the form of property. Next, the item must have benefits based on Sharia, must be mutakawam, which is have value, must be holy, not something like liquor or pork. The item must be known clearly and definitely, must be owned by Rahin, known as borrower. Then must be mufarraq, which is not attached to something, that is not mortgage. And the last one is must be mutamayiz, means the item is not in the form of a general part of an item. Following the operation of arahnu, the borrower, arahin, should submit the collateral to the lenders, armuntahin, where the lender can forgo the item but not vice versa. Besides, any property cannot be traded according to the Sharia law. cannot be used as a rahnu. The borrower must pay the loan after the maturity date, and the lender must return the collateral to the owner. If the borrower fails to repay the loan, the lender can receive the right to recover his loan from the collateral, and he must return to the borrower if anything remained. Next, the lender is responsible for the collateral for any damage caused by his wrongdoings, and in the latter case, the borrower remains owing the loan to the lender. If the borrower rejects the selling of the collateral in the case of default, or the lender condition that he will take the collateral if the borrower default to pay him, then such transactions cannot be counted as a rahnu. If both sides disagree of how much the loan was, the judge will consider the words of the borrower with swearing, unless the lender comes with evidence. In addition, if the lender claims that he returned the collateral to the borrower and the borrower rejects, the letter's word will be considered with swearing, unless the lender comes with evidence. Next, the lender can get benefits from the pledged assets if they were submitted as collateral. For example, he can ride the horse or use the milk of the cow by feeding them, but he cannot use more on what he spent on them. Moreover, if the borrower dies or bankrupt, the lender should be privileged. He has a right to sell the collateral to discover his loan. If the collateral is not enough for the loan, he will remain one of those waiting repayment from what the dead man has left or the bankrupt borrower still owns. Last, if the applicant is unable to repay the loan amount, the collateral will be auctioned. The amount paid for the auction collateral will be the applicant's repayment. If there is balance from the auction value compared to the loan amount, the balance will be given to the applicant.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Siti Khadijah Binti Khalid and my metric number 1201517. Next, I will explain about the rules and condition of ar-rahnu. Firstly, rules of ar-rahnu. Rahnu is that the debtor agrees with the lender to place something of his property with the lender so that if the borrower does not pay the debt at the established time, the lender can take his right from pawn object, or we call as marhun. Next, rahnu is not valid from a coerced, minor, insane and bankrupt person. And lastly, properties ineligible for sale is ineligible for pawning, such as being a valued property, being existent at the time of contract, and being a non-fungible property. Next, conditions of ar-rahnu. Firstly, condition related to sirah. Sirah of ar-rahnu should not be suspended by a condition or deferred to a future date. Next, condition related to contracting parties. Firstly, according to Shafi'i and Hanbali, both contracting parties must have a legal qualification, as rahnu regarded as non-obligatory voluntary action. Meanwhile, according in Hanafi and Maliki, rahnu from discerning child or minor and a mentally incompetent person is valid upon the approval of his wali or his guardian. Next, condition related to the debt or liability. Firstly, the underlying debt must be an established, binding and enforceable one, either through a loan, sale or damage in the torts against a property. Next, the underlying debt must be known and defined to both contracting parties. If one of the parties are uncertain of the debt, the pawning is considered invalid. Next, the underlying debt must be matured or about to be matured. Rahnu is valid if the debt is based on the price of a binding sale or during option period prior to its bindingness, as the sale contract is going to be binding after the option expires. And lastly, Shafi'i and Hanbali allows liability debt based on answer fraud in rahnu, while Hanafi and Maliki prohibit it. Lastly, condition related to the receipt or possession of pawn object. Firstly, it must be permissible of the debtor. eligibility of the contracting parties, and lastly, permanency of possession.
Okay, next is the completion and the dissolution of akad in Ar-Rahnu. This part means when the contract between the borrower and the lender is ended. So the first situation is where the return pawn good, the lender return the pawn good to the pawnbroker, which means the pawnbroker settle his debt. Next, the pawn good had to be sold by the order of the Qadi. This happened when the borrower cannot settle his debt, so the Qadi ordered the lender to sold the property to settle his debt. Fourth, the pawnbroker is forced to dispose the pawn property even without the knowledge of the pawnbroker. And the last one is the situation where the pawn goods are badly damaged.
Next, the application of Ar-Rahnu based on Bank Negara standard. In the policy of Bank Negara about Ar-Rahnu, on the part B, Sharia requirements and optional practice, standard for 7.1, which mentioned about an IFI which used the Ar-Rahnu contract for its product and service, must ensure that such products and services are in compliance with Part B of this policy document, which is mean the IFI must follow the rules and the contract, the component of Ar-Rahnu contract, which is the pledger and the pledgee, collectively referred to as a contracting parties. And second, the offer, which is mean ijab, and the acceptance, which is mean qabul, to enter into the Ar-Rahnu contract. And the last one is the subject matter of the Ar-Rahnu contract. So for example is the IFI that used the contract of Ar-Rahnu, which is Maybank. So under the current of Islamic banking, the concept of Ar-Rahnu can be applied into different applications. Okay, the first one is by using the collateral asset or marhun as the pure security. As an example, under house financing, normally the bank will provide the financing facility for the customer to purchase the house, that makes the bank as the creditor and the customer as the debtor, as the financing is on credit sale, which creates the debt. Whereby the second application, which is the Ar-Rahnu, will be an instrument to facilitate the microfinancing. Here the amount of financing will given depend on the value of the marhun, which is mean the pledge asset. In normal of Ar-Rahnu of microfinancing, the customer pledge their valuable assets such as gold to the pawn shop, as known as Kedai Pajak Gadai Islam, as the marhun. The marhun will be valued and the customer will be granted a loan based on the certain percentage, such as for example, let's say the percentage is 70% of the value from the marhun. So the customer will be granted a loan based on the 70% of the value of the marhun that he already pledged.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Ahmad AmirHuzaifi bin Amir. Metric number is 120155. First, advantages of Ar-Rahnu. First, Ar-Rahnu can give an easy access to credit facility provided the customer possesses the respective recognized asset by the credit grantor or financer. Second, items or assets assigned to the financer will be returned once payment is made for the amount borrowed. Third, in event of inability to pay, the asset will be sold an amount above the borrower amount and rental fee will be returned to the customer. 4. The items assigned to financer are gold. Thus value will be stable and fluctuation in gold value is not erratic. 5. No risk from fluctuating interest rate, as the facility is not associated with interest rate. 6. Contribution on social welfare of the society, eradicating unjust pawning. Then disadvantages of Rahnu. First, there are 4 points. First, takaful bought by the financer for safekeeping of the asset or item. The amount recovered in the whole value of the item. So initially financing is only given to a maximum of 60% of the gold value. Second, customer need to have asset, particularly in gold. For those whom do not have this item, they are not eligible to subscribe to this product. Third, disadvantages if initial contract on higher gold value and auction is made on lower gold value. Means should the future price of the gold decrease, at the same time the customer are not able to repay the amount, the reserve price of the gold will be at lower market value. For association of rental or safekeeping fees with the financing. Association of rental fee with the advance amount might lead to the understanding that the monthly rental fee or charge is indirectly based on some percentage of financing amount. This is similar to conventional finance, where the charge or interest is based on the principal amount lent.
This is the Sharia issue related to Rahnu, which is the profit element in savings wages over collateral assets. The gold deposit wage rate charged by Islamic finance institution to customers is determined based on the value of gold pledge. This method of determining the savings wage was found to contain an element of profit, and this is not in the line with Sharia requirements, which is only allow the imposition of saving charge based on costs directly related to Rahnu transactions only. According to the Sharia perspective, lenders are not allowed to take amount in excess of the value of the loan granted, either directly or indirectly, as it generates financial benefits to creditors. Based on this hadith, kullu qardin jar naf'an fahuwa riban, means every loan which give benefits to the creditor is considered riba. This issue refers to the 194 and 195 Mesyuarat Majlis Penasihat Syariah MPS Bank Negara Malaysia.
Next, the challenges of Rahnu in Malaysia. So, since the establishment of Rahnu in Malaysia, the Islamic pawnbroking faced several challenges in their operation. For example, the first one is customer more prefer to take conventional pawn shop or lend some money from illegal source such as ahlong. This is because conventional offer high margin to value for or collateral and unlimited time to redeem. The second one is consumer are reluctant to choose Islamic pawnbroking because it was perceived by society as it products for poor and the needy people. Due of that, providers of Rahnu scheme have to educate the consumer on the benefits of Islamic pawnbroking in order to increase the acceptance of Islamic pawnbroking in Malaysia. Now, lastly, Islamic pawnbroker had been reportedly received fake gold during the operations of bleach. This will destroy the future of Islamic pawnbroking as a source of financing if the situation continuously occurs.
Continue to the comparison between Rahnu and pawnbroking. Okay, the first one is pawnbroking is motivated on making profit from the needy individual, while Rahnu is aimed to help those in need. Second, pawnbroking work based on the Pawnbroker Act 1972, while Rahnu is based on 4 binding concepts, which are Qardul Hasan, Al-Ujrah, Wadi'ah Yadul Amanah, and Wadi'ah Yad Damanah. The third one is pawnbroking have high interest charge, while Rahnu have a minimum fee and only impose storage and insurance charge. For In pawnbroking, item can be anything such gold, diamond, jewelry, musical instrument and firearm and more, while arahnu, only gold is the permitted item. The last one is, in pawnbroking, the weight and length of the pound gold are not recorded clearly and properly on the receipt, while in arahnu, every gold is size and weight is carefully recorded.
For conclusion, to sum up, Ar-Rahnu or Islamic pawnbroking refers to a transaction that involves valuable items or asset as collateral items surrendered by a debtor to parties that provide loans as assurance for the contract debt. The pawn object can be used to settle debt in case the debtor could not afford to pay up the debt, and whatever balance left will then be given to the owner of the pawn object. Moreover, Rahnu is a concept that is permitted by the Sharia, where its main objective is to protect the well-being of the debtor and the creditor to guarantee the settlement amount. Furthermore, it is a fact that our Rahnu system has the capacity and capability to fill the gap in the short-term credit structure of the country. Islamic pawnbroking such as Ar-Rahnu is not a competition to the conventional pawnbroking, but it is compensating to rising demand. Customers prefer Islamic pawnbroking service such as Ar-Rahnu to conventional pawnbroking service because the former provide fast, hassle-free, riba-free and transparent microcredit facilities. That's all from us. Thank you.